the defendant is guilty.
A Johnston County man convicted in the death of a 4-year-old girl.
WRAL is live from the courthouse with what comes next for Jonathan Richardson.
Investigators search for clues after a gas station shooting leaves one man dead.
WRAL is here to help with Tax Pros on Call. Phone lines are open now for free tax information. 1-800-424-WRAL.
Live from Raleigh, WRAL News starts right now.
The Johnston County man convicted of killing 4-year-old Tegan Skiba could receive the death penalty. That's because earlier today, the jury found Jonathan Richardson guilty on all counts. Hello, I'm David Crabtree.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. After 4 weeks of testimony, it took the jury just 1 hour to reach a verdict. Richardson was convicted of sexual offense with a child, kidnapping, child abuse, and first-degree murder. WRAL's Brian Mims was in the courtroom as the verdict was read, and he joins us now live tonight. And Brian, what's next?
Deborah, the jury must now decide if Jonathan Richardson should get the death penalty. Tomorrow afternoon, jurors will return to hear testimony in the sentencing phase of this trial. But this phase is now over. All the evidence, graphic, heart-wrenching, at times horrifying, came down to this moment. 12:02 p.m. He walked into the courtroom and sat in the same chair next to the same lawyer, just as he had every day for 22 days. But this time, everything was different. After 1 hour, the verdict was in. 12:13 p.m., the clerk read what the jury had decided about Jonathan Douglas Richardson.
We, the jury, return as our unanimous verdict that the defendant is guilty of first-degree kidnapping.
Ever so subtly, his head shook, as if saying no. But mostly he kept the same face he had for 22 days, expressionless. Kidnapping, guilty. Child abuse, guilty. Sexual offense with a child, guilty. The state put on nearly 4 weeks of testimony. Doctors who said 4-year-old Tegan Skiba was bitten more than 60 times. Analysts who said she was whipped with a cord and sexually abused. Law officers who said it was the worst thing they had ever seen. In the end, a severe head injury killed her, leading to the most serious charge.
We, the jury, return as our unanimous verdict that the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder based on the theory of murder by torture and based on the felony murder rule.
Again, expressionless. But behind him, Richardson's mother in the brown sweater wept. That's his grandmother in the yellow. The crimes happened in a shed 112 feet from her house. She had let Richardson live there with Tegan's mom, his girlfriend. Both declined to comment on the verdict. Same for Tegan Skiba's grandparents. At 12:38 p.m., he walked out of the courtroom, 25 years old, a convicted murderer. And it's not over yet. The state will call witnesses, possibly Tegan's loved ones, to argue in support of the death penalty. The defense will bring its own witnesses in hopes of sparing Richardson's life. That phase of the trial begins tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 and could last a few days. Deborah.
Brian Mims live in Smithfield. Thank you, Brian. The mother of Tegan Skiba is also charged in this case. Helen Reyes testified against Richardson in his trial. She is charged with negligent child abuse. She testified she left her daughter with Richardson while she went out of state for military training. Reyes is not in jail, and it's unclear when she will face trial.
Thousands stood together in the rain to remember Nelson Mandela as a freedom fighter who gave people hope.
Family members, friends, and world leaders were among those mourning the death of the former South African leader.
For the people of South Africa, for those he inspired around the globe, Madiba's passing is rightly a time of mourning and a time to celebrate a heroic life.
As you can see from these pictures, the rain didn't dampen the mood or the spirit in the stadium today. David Crabtree arrived in South Africa today and joins us live from Soweto.
And David, what's the mood like there tonight?
Well, the mood here at this hour is actually quiet and somber. It's just after 1 o'clock here in the Soweto Township. That hasn't been the case all evening, though. I've talked to people all up and down this street tonight as they have very pridefully and proudly remembered Nelson Mandela, remembering the man who was president of this country, the man who was in prison, the man who 20 years ago today won the Nobel Peace Prize. And they were joyous earlier today with this country's first major celebration.
I was just looking, I said, this isn't good. You know, something's happened over here. These people aren't moving.
Right now in WRAL, witnesses were horrified by what they heard and in total disbelief over what they saw. Tonight, we're getting a better idea of what happened in the moments before and after an accident at the North Carolina State Fair. 3 people are hospitalized tonight. 2 of them have been released. Authorities say all 5 were injured when the vortex threw them to the ground. Hello, I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Jackie Highland. This was breaking news at 10 o'clock last night. Sky 5 is in the air right now, bringing you these live pictures of the Midway and the area surrounding the ride. We are working several angles of this story tonight, and within the last 15 minutes, the 911 calls were released. A warning, this call is distorted.
I'm standing here at Vortex, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people down. They still have about 30 feet, about 15 to 20 feet.
We have our crew spread out across the fairgrounds right now. Ariel Clay spoke with witnesses.
Brian Schrader has been asking questions to figure out exactly what went wrong. We begin with David Crabtree, who is leading our coverage at the fairgrounds tonight. David?
Gerald, I've been here for the past couple of hours, and I've seen literally thousands of people here this afternoon. People are telling me that they are more cautious than they have been in the past about the rides. In fact, they were just even looking at the rides more carefully, they said, than they did prior to what they heard of what happened last night. Now, within the past couple of hours, the company that operates the Vortex ride released a statement on Facebook.
WRAL is live in Boston from this year's marathon, talking to local runners about security and reclaiming the finish line.
Then a developing story as a local scout leader is accused of sexual offenses with a 3-year-old girl.
Things are heating up after today's sunshine, but tomorrow's warm-up may be accompanied by a few rumbles of thunder.
Live from Raleigh, WRAL News starts right now.
Triumph after tragedy in Boston today, as for the first time in more than 3 decades, the first person to cross the finish line was American. Hello, I'm David Crabtree.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. About 36,000 people participated in the first Boston Marathon since the bombings last year that killed 3 people. Among those there today, roughly 700 North Carolinians. Some are in Boston for the first time. Others return to take care of unfinished business.
And of course, the biggest change this year is security. More cameras, observation points, helicopters, officers on rooftops. Sloan Heffernan is live in Boston this evening. Sloan, tightened security this year. Obviously, it did not do anything to change the mood.
It certainly did not. Great energy here in Boston. As you can see behind me, people are starting to leave the marathon area. Race day wrapping up much differently than it did last year. This is the headline of the Boston Herald this morning, a new beginning, and that is exactly what happened here today with the help of some North Carolina runners.
An amazing rescue by the FBI of a man from here in Wake Forest 5 days ago. You won't believe the details.
We never thought it would turn out like this.
For the first time, we hear from the family injured in the State Fair Vortex accident.
We're warming up for a great weekend. I'll tell you how long we'll see 70s and higher.
WRAL News starts right now with breaking news.
We are following the developing story involving the kidnapping of a Wake Forest man and his safe return home. But first, we have some breaking news we want to get to. Hello, everyone. I'm Monica LaLiberty.
And I'm David Crabtree. Deborah Morgan has the evening off. Sky 5 was over at Northgate Mall just a few moments ago, where police are there in a very large presence. We are told they responded to calls of shots fired in the area. They tell us there were shots fired in the parking lot at the mall. A deputy chased a male believed to be the suspect and caught that male, but they've not given us any additional information or a name. We will keep you posted on this breaking and developing story as we get new information.
Now to a story that is making national headlines today. 5 days after he was kidnapped from his home and taken to an Atlanta apartment, a Wake Forest man is safe tonight.
The FBI says his kidnapping was an elaborate plot. It appears to be directly related to his daughter's work as a Wake County prosecutor. Frank Jansen was reported missing on Saturday. The FBI rescued him last night from an Atlanta apartment just before midnight. 5 people were arrested. They all appeared in federal court late this afternoon. We have team coverage over the next 90 minutes. Brian Mims is in Atlanta digging up information about the suspects. Julia Sims is in the neighborhood where Jansen lives. We begin, however, with Amanda Lamb, who has more on the investigation and the motive. Amanda?
David, what an unbelievable turn of events in the last 24 hours. So many law enforcement agencies came together to make this happen. Now, the FBI won't go on record saying exactly what the motive is in this case, but they have connected some of the dots for us. They tell us the kidnappers wanted a man out of prison, a man who was put in prison by a prosecutor, the victim's daughter.
Frank Jansen's nightmare started Saturday morning when he was kidnapped and shocked with a taser at the front door of his Wake Forest home.
He spent 5 nights in the hands of a group of very dangerous people.
Monday, Jansen's wife received a text message from kidnappers threatening his life and making demands. She also received a photograph of her husband tied to a chair.
We can only imagine the uncertainty, confusion, and fear he experienced.
Behind the scenes, local, state, and federal law enforcement worked around the clock to locate Jansen.
I can tell you Mr. Jansen was targeted by a group as part of an elaborate kidnapping plot.
Investigators linked the text messages to a cell phone they say was being used by 49-year-old Kelvin Melton, an inmate at a prison in Butner.
Melton was previously prosecuted by Frank Jansen's daughter, who is an assistant district attorney, and as a result, Melton received a state sentence of life without parole.
Wednesday night, the FBI intercepted a call from kidnappers discussing how they were going to kill Jansen and bury his body. Just before midnight, they entered an apartment in Atlanta and rescued him.
I can tell you that 5 individuals have been charged with federal kidnapping charges.
And the Jansen family, we need time to heal from this horrifying experience.
Now, Jansen was checked out by a doctor immediately after he was rescued. We're told he's doing okay physically, but as you can imagine, the emotional scars from this are going to take a long time to heal. The family's asking for privacy. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll hear from the new Wake County District Attorney about how this happy ending has lifted a black cloud from the shoulders of his employees. Colleagues of the daughter of this victim say they have been praying for Jansen's safe return. Back to you.
It is an amazing story. Amanda Lamb live in Wake Forest. Thank you, Amanda. Within the past half hour, the Department of Public Safety issued a statement about cell phones in prison. Secretary Frank Perry said in part the department is concerned and will aggressively investigate and take action against offenders and staff involved in using cell phones to conduct criminal activity from inside prison walls.
Now to Frank Jansen's neighbors who live with fear and concern for the past 5 days, wondering what happened. Police couldn't give any details of what they knew until Jansen was found. Obviously, tonight they are very relieved that he is safe. Julia Sims continues our team coverage from the neighborhood. Julia, I do imagine, though, they are still very concerned.
They certainly are. And, you know, Monica, this is a story that's garnered a lot of attention. We've seen national media here in the Heritage neighborhood throughout the day. Neighbors tell us that everyone had their own theory as to what may have happened, but I don't know if any of it really came close to the real thing. The bottom line tonight, Frank Jansen is safe and alive, and neighbors here say that makes it a good day. While Frank Jansen's home sat surrounded by crime scene tape, neighbors' thoughts understandably went to the dark side.
Oh, I was very disturbed.
But the mood in the neighborhood noticeably lightened as news spread about Jansen's rescue.
I was beginning to think, you know, it's been so long, I didn't think we were going to find him alive, but I'm very happy that we did. I've been praying for him every night.
Many neighbors didn't want to talk on camera, telling us simply they're relieved. Others, though, said questions remain.
You know, the issue's kind of solved. They found Frank, but we don't know what happened.
Law enforcement officers offered some answers about the unbelievable tale that started here in a quiet Wake Forest neighborhood. But neighbors understand they may never know all the details. The crime scene tape is gone now, but if you look closely, you can see fingerprint residue on the Jansen's front door. A reminder perhaps this story could have had a very different ending. I guess big sense of relief here.
Yeah, big sense of relief.
Now, the neighborhood is not completely back to normal. A Wake Forest police car and an unmarked SUV with 2 officers are sitting in front of a home here within the neighborhood. WRAL has learned that one of Frank Jansen's relatives lives in that house. We think those officers could be there as a security measure, but Monica, Those officers aren't commenting.
Oh my gosh, I imagine not. And I just imagine everyone in that neighborhood. It's going to be a while before they have any total relief from that for sure. Thank you, Julia Sims, live in Wake Forest. Now, we are learning more about the 5 people who were arrested following Jansen's rescue. During their first appearance in federal court, we learned the entire group is from the Atlanta area. Brian Mims was in the courtroom. He will have much more on this angle tonight at 6, live from Atlanta.
Another major story this afternoon, because for the first time we are hearing publicly from the family thrown from a ride at the State Fair in October. They spoke after announcing plans to sue the ride operators and owners. Ken Smith covered the story the night of the accident last fall, and Ken joins us now with how this family is coping. Ken?
David, from looking at that family today, it's clear that the Vortex ride accident last October changed the Gorham's lives as they knew it. Keisha Gorham, some of her family members, and the family's attorney, Willie Gary, stood on the steps of the Durham County Courthouse this morning following the filing of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The suit is against Powers Great American Midways, which brought the ride to the fair, and Family Attractions Amusement Company that operated the Vortex. The family is seeking $150 million in damages. During the final weekend of the State Fair, the Gorhams and several others were thrown from the ride when it suddenly restarted while riders were trying to get off. The ride flipped back up in the air. Some riders fell about 20 feet to the ground. Keisha Gorham says the one thing she remembers from that night is the sound. She says it's a constant memory, the loud bang, which she says was her head hitting the platform.
I've come quite a ways given my injuries. These past couple of months have been just a nightmare, pretty much. It's a nightmare. I would not wish this on anyone. It's just like Attorney Gary said, you know, we went to the fair for an enjoyable evening and never would have imagined that anything like this would have happened.
Gorham says her entire family is still recovering from the accident. Her husband, Anthony, was the most seriously injured. He suffered brain, skull, neck, and spinal cord injuries. He's had several surgeries, including brain surgery this week. He also lost sight in one eye. She says her husband has gone from the breadwinner in the family to a shell of a man. Her son, she says, used to be on the honor roll. Now his grades are suffering, and he has nightmares. She also talked about her niece, Shakima Dempsey. Gorham says she was studying to be a nurse, but because of her back injury as a result of this accident, those plans are on hold. That's not the case anymore. Well, the ride operator Tim Turturo and owner Joshua Macaroni, both from Georgia, are facing criminal charges in this case. Both are also named in that lawsuit. David.
Ken Smith reporting for us. Ken, thank you.
A Wake County man is in jail tonight accused of killing his in-laws and shooting his estranged wife with their 3 children nearby. Nathan Holden is charged with 2 counts of murder. His wife, LaTanya, is in critical condition tonight. The children were not hurt. It happened around 10 last night outside Wendell. Officers arrested Holden this morning in a field near his home. Authorities in Hope Mills are hunting for 2 gunmen who brutally assaulted employees at a fast food restaurant before then robbing the place. It happened just before 2 Monday morning at the McDonald's across from Jack Britt High School. Security video shows 2 masked gunmen rushing behind the counter. Investigators say they flashed handguns, roughed up employees, and took money from a safe. They locked the workers in a walk-in cooler before making their getaway with the cash.
Yeah, breaking news now is the man who caused another car to crash into an Orlando daycare has surrendered. 1 child died, several others injured in the accident yesterday. Authorities say Robert Corchedo hit the car that drove into the KinderCare. He immediately drove off in his SUV. A couple of hours later, his Durango was found abandoned nearby. 4-year-old Lily Quintus died. 14 others were hurt. 1 remains in critical condition. What motivated a Pennsylvania teenager to go on a stabbing rampage at his high school remains a mystery. His lawyers, however, say he was not a loner and rarely got into trouble. 16-year-old Alex Herbal is charged as an adult. Investigators say he used 2 ordinary kitchen knives to stab and slash 21 students and a security guard. All are expected to survive. The school will likely remain closed until Monday.
Lots of new information out today about the General Motors recall involving 2.6 million cars. The automaker says another part needs repair, a replacement of ignition lock cylinders that allow drivers to remove the key while the engine is running. The initial recall involved a faulty ignition switch that can cause sudden stalling. Also today, 2 GM engineers are now on paid leave because of that ignition switch recall. The action stems from the automaker's internal investigation into why it took more than 10 years to recall the cars. Congress is also investigating.
A rough day on Wall Street, to say the least. The Dow meltdown, falling 266 points today. The S&P losing 39, and the Nasdaq had its worst day since 2011, dropping 129 points.
Well, it coats cars and sidewalks and has allergy sufferers and sneezing attacks.
Yeah, and in 3 minutes, the WRAL health team helps all of us fight back against pollen. Dr. Mask will tell us when to use over-the-counter meds and when it's time to see a specialist.
Plus, just a week ago, David Letterman announced he's retiring. Well, today, CBS named his replacement. Who it is and what Letterman has to say about him. Greg.
All right, Monica, temperatures finally got to above normal levels this afternoon, and now that we've accomplished that feat, it looks like we're going to be seeing several encores. We'll let you know how long the warm weather will last coming up.